Okay, welcome to part 4 of our FL Studio Basics series. So, to kind of recap, in part 1, I showed you the very basics, what some of these buttons do up here, and how we made our own drum loop in our channel rack. Part 2 was looking at bringing in your own sounds, samples, how to stretch them into tempo, and looking at effects on our mixer. Part 3 we looked at automation and just organization, and as the final part to this, I'm going to bring up a track that is already finished, and go over that and just kind of give you an overview of what I've done to the song to finish it. It's not going to be like super in-depth mix and mastering. It's just going to be just some tips and stuff you can use, because there is a lot of different ways you can mix and master your track. So let's go ahead and open that. Okay, so this is my track, Agora, which is unreleased actually, so you might get some snippets in this video, but this is basically, what a final track could look like. I've organized everything in its own tracks here, colored, like I've tried to make all the automation clips like in the white. As you can see, I've got an automation clip sitting in the perk track, that is my mistake. Forgive me for that one, but you get the main idea. I have our drums, melody, bass, synth. This is drum loop, bells, effects. So I've got like a white noise riser here, percussion, an automation clip, another one, another FX track, some more automation, a snare build, backup melody, some more automation, and vocals down the bottom. So I'll start by just getting rid of the library on the side. I normally do that every time I'm about to start mixing and mastering. I just get rid of that because I know I'm not going to bring anything else in. So all I need is these two things here. And the master will look something like this. So as you can see, I've done a lot of adjusting of the volume and panning on some sounds, and also put some stereo in some of these sounds. Okay, so let's talk about what's actually led up to this here. So, throughout making the song, I might have adjusted the volume and panning through the channel rack, just to get an idea of what it'll sound like, and adjusting volume as needed. But once the final song's done and you're happy with it, this is what I do anyway. I bring up my mixer and I'll bring every sound up one by one. So kick, for example, let's go to drum, pattern, and let's just solo the kick. Now let's say this wasn't mixed already. The kick, it might be hitting up here, or it might be below. I want to adjust this volume here till I start seeing it hit negative 12 decibels here, like this. Okay. Now, the painful part is I do that with every single sound that I have on here. Bring them all down to roughly negative 12 decibels. What what that's doing is kind of leveling out the playing field, if you like. You bring everything down to that one volume, and you can go from there, adjusting everything as you need in the mixer. Now, while I'm going through and adjusting the volume, I'll most likely add effects that I need to at the same time. I might have already added effects during the making of the song. I might have added this plugin here earlier, which just gives the kick some more punch, makes it a bit louder as well. Reverb I might have added earlier, but while I'm mixing, I probably adjusted the EQ, and as you can see, I've actually cut out the bass a little bit in this kick. That's completely, up to your personal preference, how much bass you want in it. Does it sound good? Does it sound right, with any other parts of your song? That's when you just need to really tune it and listen for yourself. Some good headphones does help. I pretty much mix and master on headphones, and they're not even expensive headphones. And then I'll probably export the song, listen on a decent speaker, listen in the car, and I might have to come back and actually adjust some more. I've added EQ on almost everything I have here. What's a good example? Okay, so we have this sound here, which I think is the bells. No, it wasn't the bells, it was my synth. So this is what it sounds like. Now I've added an EQ, first of all, to take away the bass. And I've added a second one to take away some of the other frequencies. So I've cut a little bit more down on the bass to low mid, and I've cut a little bit of this high end down, just because it might have been a bit too harsh sounding. So that's another example. What you can do during mixing and mastering, just go through each sound and put an EQ on, put whatever effects you think you need to put on. And another thing, I'll just go back a few steps. So once I've adjusted the volume down to 12 on everything, I want to start adjusting the volume in the mixer. Now, a tip I learned is put everything in mono. So go to the master track, put it in mono, and then listen to your song, and I start adjusting the volume while you're listening in mono. And I'll give you an example of what mono versus stereo sounds like. So this is mono. And then back to stereo. So having it in mono just kind of helps you listen to the sound a lot more clearer, I guess you could say. There's probably a better word I'm trying to think of to adjust the volume. And once you're happy with the volume, go back to stereo and then continue on with your mixing. So with the panning, I don't want to have the panning done on the channel rack. So if you've done any of that, just put them all back to 0 and do your panning within the mixer. Alright, I was just about to end the video and I realized I missed probably one of the most important parts. Your master track. So, we've gone through all our sounds, we've adjusted the volume, we're happy with how it sounds and all that. And you might be thinking, well, it doesn't sound very loud. I want this song to, the song might only be reaching up to here or something. You want it to be reaching, 0. You don't want it clipping up in red either. So there's a million ways you can do this, heaps of tutorials on YouTube, the way people do it. this is how I do it for the moment, is I go to my master and select uh, Maximus, which you'll find in here. Now this is like a more in-depth equalizer, I suppose, and you can separate the low, mid, and high, and you've got everything together. Now I haven't actually touched any of these. All I've done is gone to master and actually raised the volume on our post gain here to 6 decibels. That increases the volume overall. And then to avoid it distorting and clipping, I've brought in Fruity Limiter and brought that up another 2 decibels. Now, at this point, you might be hearing maybe too much bass, something or too much high frequency in your song. Obviously, you can go through each individual sound and try and find where it is. And once you're happy, I use something called frequency splitter, which is another EQ basically. And I can adjust like the low, the mid, and the high of the overall song. And as you can see, I've only really touched the low end the tiniest bit. It's at like negative 0.2 decibels. The high is just on 0.1 and the mid's down to 0.4. So, to summarize, really, go through your song, adjust the volume, the panning, and all that. Come to your master track and start adding EQ, add a limiter, raise the volume till you're happy with it. And if that's not how you want to do it, that's fine. There's a lot more other ways. You can be lazy and literally just go Maximus and hit clear master, but it might not be how you want it to sound. There's so many other YouTube tutorials out there. Now, a couple tips on drums, for example. As you can see, I have a clap, but I've also laid it with a snare. So here's what they sound like normally. And if I was to mute one, so let's just go with the snare itself. Not very loud, but added with that clap, it just gives it some more punch to it. So this is just the clap on its own. And together. So that's another thing you do. Try layering, sounds together. People even layer their kicks. If you want an extra punch to your kick, your snares. I don't know about, hi-hats. You can do it with hi-hats, perks, anything, just experiment. And another thing is something like a crash. A crash is a very high frequency sound, and that can be very harsh. So as you will see, the crashes are actually quite low volume. So if we play this, and another thing, to make sounds a bit more realistic is that's why you could use panning. So if you imagine a real drum kit laid out in front of you, you might have a crash that's up to the left. So you might pan that to the left, a crash to the right, and a hi-hat that's over to the left. So that's why you might use panning as well. You might also use it just to spread out sounds so they're not overlapping. That's why I've used the stereo here on some of these. So more sounds are spread out than others, so they're not just colliding with one another. And on my last, so on part 3, we looked at automation clips. So this will be a good example of when I'm using them. So as you can see, I've got the melody, the bass, a riser, backup melody. So this is going to be another melody that comes in which follows the main one. I've got some vocals here, and this is the build up here. So I've got some drums, some snares here that's going to build up. So if we give it a listen. So what you're hearing is the white noise just slowly builds up volume on its own. As you can see, that's the way it's shaped. It slowly comes in. The bass goes from a low pass and builds up, and the snare also does that as well. And the main melody is also, hold on a second. Yeah, so both of these are coming from low pass and going up to center. Yeah, so it's pretty basic build up. Put this vocal loop in here just to add a bit more, make it a bit more interesting. That, I guess that pretty much sums up our FL Studio Basics series here. So yeah, just wanted to make a 4-part thing showing you guys, the very basics and going through the motions until you have made your first song, I suppose. And I hope this has helped in your journey. And please let me know if you've been watching, following along. In the comments, let me know, if you've made a song, show me. Give me some more video ideas, if I should do some more tutorials. Yeah, please subscribe, like, and check out my music. Thank you everyone for watching.